Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our Wii U Legacy discussion. If you missed part 1, you can find a link to it in the description below. Otherwise, let's hop right back in where we left off at. High point, Mario Kart 8. I actually really do like that game. I think it's actually, I know it's your favorite Mario Kart game, Roger.
Yeah.
I've had a great time with it. I gave it a great review. I think, I don't think it's the most original Mario Kart, but what it is, it does pretty darn well. I do have a few issues with unbalancing, but on the whole, I like that game. It has a really good online mode. Now, this gets to my low point. It's kind of a broader low point. But that's the fact that Mario Kart 8 completely missed the ball on gamepad integration. Like, they had a perfect opportunity to do something really cool, unique, and fresh with a gamepad, and they just completely squandered it. Instead of just putting a giant horn on the screen. When what they could have done is, done something along the lines of, yes, everyone's gonna guess what I'm gonna say, Double Dash, where you could actually use a gamepad to aim your weapons, or have a two-player mode where one person's driving, the other player can use a gamepad to aim, actually aim your turtle shells or your banana peels or whatever. There is so much they could have done there, and I'm amazed they didn't. But that would be the showcase thing right there for the Wii U. I feel like, especially given the fact that they had announced that same year that they showed off Mario Kart 8, as I remember, that the Wii U would support two controllers or two gamepads. And they never did that. And I feel like there could have been so much more they could have done with that. Having two gamepads out there, you can have actual teams based on one person playing on the TV and another person on the gamepad. I don't know.
I personally feel like a lot of those ideas that they had for that, I think they're holding them for the Switch. Because now the Switch can basically do that. You can basically...
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, only if you have two Switches.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, is that if you have a Switch and your friend has a Switch, you'll be playing with each... I think a lot of the ideas that they had, they're going to integrate into the new console.
I hope you're right. We talked about this before, but I hope that means Double Dash 2, baby.
Well, I think to a degree they bit off more than they could chew. I think when they promised, dual gamepad functionality, I think they promised that, and then they realized, well, damn, the Wii U isn't actually powerful enough to render what you see on the TV and on two different gamepads. I mean, the Wii U's already being taxed when it has to render what you're seeing on the TV and on one gamepad screen. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think, for example, I think that goes into why maybe we didn't see Mario Kart 8 use the gamepad as simply a fifth screen, so a fifth player could play. So I think maybe just hardware limitations are kind of why that didn't bear out. And I agree, Andre. Roger. I think we'll see some of that on Switch.
Yeah, for sure.
For that reason.
I hope so.
Me too.
Can I give another high point, actually? Because I just thought of something that I really like about the system when you brought that up. Is I really like the way that they handled the close third-party developers that actually did develop for the system. And what I mean by that is we have companies like Atlas, who made Tokyo Mirage Sessions. We have Tecmo Koei, which made Hyrule Warriors, which I still love. That's one of my favorite games on the system. I love Hyrule Warriors. And on top of that, too, they also had Namco develop Pokken Tournament, and Namco developed Smash Brothers alongside Sakurai. And it seems like they started doing this in the Gamecube era a little bit, where they would partner up with third parties. If you remember Sega, they co-developed F-Zero with, and then Namco made Star Fox Assault. But I feel like they really doubled down on that idea that they could license out their characters to these third parties for games on their platform that basically feel like first-party games. And I really hope they continue doing that in the future, because I feel like a lot of those titles were some of the best on the system, save for, of course, the low point out of that bunch, Star Fox Zero. And I remember the announcement of Star Fox at E3 2 years ago, before they showed, where Miyamoto didn't even show the game off publicly. It was on a blurred screen. Right. And I lost my mind. I'm we're finally getting a true HD Star Fox. It's going to be amazing. And then we got this. And I know there are people who defend Star Fox Zero, and there are bits of the game that I like, but I would honestly say that I feel Star Fox Zero is my biggest disappointment from Nintendo in the past decade. And I genuinely, thoroughly believe that. I don't know how they screwed up so much with Star Fox when so many of these other systems, these other games, and from these other classic franchises were so great and arguably had some of their best iterations on the Wii U. And again, you could like Star Fox Zero. I'm not hating you for if you like it. It's fine, whatever. I'm sure people are gonna get really mad at me in the comments. No, you like what you like. That's cool. But I personally found Star Fox Zero to be an absolute disappointment in every single way.
I want to say I agree with a lot of what you're saying about Star Fox Zero. I want to say one thing in its defense, and that is that I'm actually in the midst of playing through it co-op. and my friend and I are having an incredibly good time playing it co-op. That doesn't mean that's not really an excuse. Like, a game should be just as fun single player as it is co-op, but the co-op is truly, truly fun.
Well,
that said,
it's Double Dash co-op, but that's
essentially.
Yeah.
Now, that said, Star Fox Zero was a massive disappointment in so many other ways. I mean, I totally get why they rebooted the series yet again, like a reboot, but I really wish they had stayed the course and kept Star Fox as like this really weird, wacky space opera, starring lots of anthropomorphic animals, and like, you remember Star Fox Command and all those ridiculous soap opera endings? They were awesome. They were stupid, like aggressively stupid, but only Star Fox was doing that.
Yeah, well,
and
Fox
now it's not
Falco,
doing that anymore.
Fox and Falco retired to be F-Zero racers in one of them.
Yeah, or like Crystal, she's shamed and she goes off to another galaxy and changes her name to Cursed with a K.
Right.
You can't make this crap up, but it's so good. Because it's so stupid, and they completely threw all that out in favor of a reboot. And I get why, but I'm still really disappointed that they did it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see both sides. I mean, it is. I think it's silly they rebooted it for a second time. So third time.
Well, kind of a third time, actually. Well, because Star Fox 64 was kind of its own reboot.
Well, that's what I mean. I'm counting the original Star Fox. It's a second reboot, but the third time.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yeah.
But at the same time, actually, no, I don't really have an excuse for it. They really should have continued.
It bothers me.
I mean, there's not that much to the story anyway. I mean, why can't they just continue on? Oh, yeah, Andros didn't actually die, or his son took over or something, Like, I don't know.
Well, it bothers me that, like, because of this game, we're probably not going to get a Star Fox for a really long time.
No.
And that's the worst part about it. It's that, like, this has, no pun intended, cursed the franchise. It really has.
I mean, kind of in the sense that Other M may have cursed Metroid.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, kind of getting back into what you guys said about, like, the soap opera nature of some of the earlier Star Fox games. Like, I kind of wish they had done, like, this short that came out with Star Fox Zero. I love that thing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That had a great energy and humor to it. I'm like, why isn't this in Star Fox Zero? Like, I think if Star Fox took on an atmosphere closer to that short, maybe a bit more of a story focus too. I mean, I think there's something more they could work with there and build off of. I really just love the idea of that short.
And
Straight
get
up,
motion controls. Play with a regular controller on the Switch. That'd be great. Yeah. Please do that, Nintendo.
Straight up, I would watch a Star Fox animated series done in the vein. Whether it's on Hulu or Netflix or on YouTube, I would watch a full series absolutely in a second.
Get the Muppet Studio to make a full series using the Star Fox Muppets.
Yeah,
exactly right. All right, I've got another high here, and this gets back in something we've already touched on again, being like some of the good games. But this one deserves, I think, for me at least, its own entry, and that is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, because that game was amazing. I think it's not only one of the best Donkey Kong games, I think right up there with Donkey Kong Country 2, but I think it's just one of the best games, or best platformers of all time, and one of the best games on Wii U as well. I thought that game was just fantastic. It did everything Returns did, but better. Like, it's to the point where, like, I loved Returns. I don't know if I can go back because Tropical Freeze is that good.
Yeah, it is really a phenomenal game. And I agree with what you said earlier, Andre, about how people seem to sleep on the visuals. Like, a lot of people talk about how Tropical Freeze looks fine, but not really that, it doesn't really stand out. And I disagree. Like, it didn't change stylistically from Returns, but just seeing the kind of game or the kind of visual style that is in HD, especially running at 60 frames, like, it looked really good. And I feel like because it didn't have some sort of special style to it, people just tend to forget how great it looked.
There was so much happening on the screen in some of those levels. Like, you're going through a freaking tornado at one point. Levels like being torn up in front of you. It's
the underwater levels are gorgeous.
Also, the music.
Yeah,
the music.
My God, it's so good.
Seashore War. The first time I played that stage, I didn't even play. I had to just sit there at the start of the stage and just listen to that song, because I'm like, David Wise, man, only you could make me feel emotional about Donkey Kong taking back his home.
Right?
Like, it's so good.
Yep.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention this. This is, and of course, everyone listening is going to laugh, but I have to mention this in a discussion about high points for the Wii U. Well, kind of going off what you said, Roger, one of the highest points for me, and probably the last 10, 15 years of gaming, a true Christmas morning moment, was Mega Man's announcement for Smash Brothers. And that is something I credit, at least partially, to the Wii U. Obviously, the 3DS gets some credit as well, since it's for both systems, but Smash Wii U brought me my modern Christmas morning gaming moment. Like, I have never been so excited about anything in a game since I was like a child. So for me, that was like that's going to be like the most memorable announcement / moment of the whole generation for me, bar none. That's like a massively high point for me.
That's awesome.
I feel like Smash Brothers was a high point in terms of the character roster too, just for me. We've already talked about Smash. We did a whole discussion before we recorded this one about Smash Brothers, so we've talked about it a lot today. But I feel like genuinely this is the best Smash Brothers game they've ever made, and the character roster is unbelievable. And not just Mega Man. I mean, Pac-Man. I remember being in the room when they announced Pac-Man. Yep. That was amazing. We
all were, yeah.
Everyone's freaking out. Like, that was great. Cloud, of course, once the DLC got announced, the character ballot, the fighter ballot. Like, the hype cycle for Smash Brothers for Wii U has absolutely been one of the best hype cycle experiences, I think, of my entire life. Like,
oh, me too. There has never been anything like it.
I can't remember being that excited for a game as much as I was for Smash Brothers. And the fact that Smash then delivered, that's a testament to how good that game is.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, back when we were having our weekly, pick of the day roundup discussions, we would, make our predictions, and, like, I truly, truly believe that there's no way Smash Wii U's roster could clock in at more than, like, and this is being generous, like 48 characters. Like, maybe 46, 48, I thought was, like, the upper limit. No way Sakurai could give us 20 plus newcomers. Yeah. And yet he did. And we have a 59 character roster. Like, not only did it promise, it absolutely delivered 100% on everything it promised.
And the first party, even the first party characters too, like Duck Hunt Dog. Like the fact that there's a game where you can play with Cloud from Final Fantasy versus the Duck Hunt Dog. It's just unbelievable. Like, people take for granted, I feel, the first party choices. But like Duck Hunt Dog, Wii Fit Trainer, Bowser Jr., and all the Koopalings, like, oh man.
Yeah. Well, and not only, I think people take for granted just what kind of miracle Sakurai had to pull off to get all these characters in one game together. And only Sakurai could have done it. I can't think of another director who is so in with so many different publishers that he could go around and say, hey, I want to use your flagship character in my game along with, like, 10 other companies' flagship characters. Are you cool with that? Sure, no problem. Only Sakurai could have done it. And I mean,
PlayStation couldn't do it. We saw that.
Yeah, we saw PlayStation couldn't even get Lightning for their games. So, I mean, that's a perfect... I mean, there's so much delicious irony in the fact that Cloud appeared in Smash Brothers before PlayStation All-Stars. Like,
Cloud,
I still can't get over that.
Cloud, Ryu, and Snake were all in Smash Brothers, and before being in a PlayStation fighting game. I just think that's so funny.
And I just remember, like, I mean, just even leaving out Cloud and all the Bayonetta and all the DLC characters, this game let us who've grown up with Nintendo, grown up with video games, pit Mario, Sonic, Mega Man, and Pac-Man against each other. Those four. Those four mascots in one game together, that was like, for our generation, that was like the dream come true. It's a dream matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you kind of reminded me, the whole Smash thing reminded me of another, like, high point, I would say, of the Wii U, and that's Nintendo is keeping local couch multiplayer gaming alive, and that's something almost no one else is doing, and I respect it. Like, there's almost... Where else can you play, like, a wild racing game, a fighting game like that with 8 people if you want, or even various board games? I mean, there's so much local multiplayer on the Wii U that you really can't get anywhere else, and I love that about Nintendo keeping that strong and alive.
Yeah. Another hype, actually, I guess kind of a mixed high point, low point. Obviously, the gamepad as a controller didn't quite deliver on everything it set out to do, although I do think... Well, on one hand, I think it was Nintendo's bad for trumpeting these features as bigger than they are, and the features I'm talking about are off-TV play and the TV power button on the remote. They aren't as big a deal as Nintendo made them out to be, but I want to say that I actually got a ton of use out of both those features, and I'm going to miss them. Like, off-TV play was cool, and the TV power button syncing to your TV, there were so many times where my TV remote was out of reach or I couldn't find it, and I'm like, oh, wait, I have my Wii U gamepad. I can just control my TV from there. And I know it's not a big deal, and I know Nintendo made too big a deal out of it, but I don't want to undersell it either. Like, I did get a lot of use out of both those features.
Okay, so real quick, I agree with the TV remote feature. I actually use that all the time because I also like to have batteries for my universal remote, so that's really helpful. I'm going to kind of disagree on the off-TV play. And this is a little bit hard to approach because as an option, I mean, of course, who doesn't want more options? That's fine.
Sure.
My issue with it, though, is that it hampered the main appeal of the Wii U, for me at least, and that was it offering different gameplay opportunities, like with Nintendo Land. Because the problem is, if you wanted to make a game with off-TV play, then you can't use a gamepad in a unique way.
Good point.
It has to be tied to a single screen. And that's why I didn't like it. Also the fact that if I'm going to play my Wii U, I'd rather just do it on the TV anyway, and not on a controller where I'm basically tethered to the room regardless.
Oh, me too. I mean, it was. I just liked it from a convenience standpoint. Like there were several times, especially early. It happened less as the Wii U's life cycle went on, but especially early on, like when I was playing a lot of Sonic and All Stars Racing Transformed and New Super Mario Bros. U, stuff like that. There were a lot of times where my wife would have friends over, or she'd want to watch a TV show, and I really wanted to play my new Wii U, and I couldn't. But wait, I can. I just put my headphones in and play on the screen. But obviously, you would never choose to do so over playing on the TV because playing in full HD looks so much better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you guys have any other highs or lows personally, or
you were mentioning local multiplayer and party games, and I want to give a tepid high and a tepid low.
Ooh,
so my tepid high, tepid. So my tepid high, we already talked about Nintendo Land. Otherwise, I would give that a big thumbs up. Is Wii Party U? I don't see people talking about this game.
It wasn't good.
I actually liked Wii Party U. I actually
you know what? I'll back you up on
enjoyed Wii Party U. I thought it was really good. And my low point would be Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, yeah.
And I'm not sort of hating on that game because of what it was. I think as a party game it was fine, but the reason I'm saying that as a tepid low point is because I really think the Wii U could have used a true console Animal Crossing game. And that was a big disappointment for me. I know a lot of people said, "Oh, I bought a Wii U just for Zelda." So when Zelda was announced to be, cross-released on the Switch and then also on the Wii U, a lot of hardcore Zelda fans got mad that we never got like a true exclusive Zelda game. Sure, we got like Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess, and now we're getting Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors, but like there wasn't a true exclusive. That's how I felt about Metroid and about Animal Crossing. And Metroid we never got. Retro made Donkey Kong and then nothing else. And then we never got a real Animal Crossing. And that's kind of a bummer to me, so.
I would add F-Zero to the list of franchises that it's a huge bummer we never got on Wii U. Although I don't really blame Wii U specifically for that, or Wii.
Or Wii, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I do have one more high point I want to mention that I have forgotten about thus far, and that is I think the Wii U gave us one of my favorite controllers of all time, and that is the Wii U Pro Controller. I love this thing. It's so light. It's so light that it feels like paper in your hands. It's almost like it's not there. But the button layout is so it's comfortable. I know the differently positioned sticks are a kind of a sticking point for some people, but I got used to it pretty quickly. It has like an 80-hour battery life. It truly is a wonderful controller, and it's probably my second favorite controller now after the GameCube controller.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I think Nintendo knows that too, because I mean the Switch Pro Controller essentially looks like a matte version of the same thing.
Yeah, I actually didn't even end up. I rarely use the Pro Controller. I usually just use the gamepad.
Same.
I never had major issues with the comfort, and some games.
Oh, me neither.
And some games didn't need it for whatever silly feature they added on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the game, obviously, but I mean, I would definitely. There are games that I would go out of my way to use the Pro Controller for instead, such as Mario Kart 8 or pretty much any platformer or virtual console game. And not because the Wii U gamepad's uncomfortable or anything. Right. I just really love how the Wii U Pro Controller feels.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's not a bad controller, that's for sure. So, yeah. Well, you reminded me of the high point then. The GameCube controller adapter. Hell yeah!
Yes,
absolutely.
Hell yeah!
I was legitimately stoked when they announced that. Like, I gave it I think we did a whole discussion on it because that was awesome. That was huge.
Oh, you and every single Smash Brothers fan.
Yeah, exactly.
was super excited. Yeah,
I didn't expect that to happen, and the fact they did it, like, it seemed. I mean, it seemed like they were listening to us. Who knows if they were or not? But that's what it seemed like, and I love that they actually acknowledge that people want to play Smash with a GameCube controller. Granted, I wish they had taken it even further and let you play other games with it, including like Mario Kart. But as long as it worked in Smash, I was happy.
Speaking of the GameCube controller adapter, I should take this opportunity to apologize to whatever poor sap out there. When Smash Wii U came out, for some reason I was stupid and didn't think that I needed to pre-order the GameCube controller adapter. I know, right? I don't know why I thought that. So, launch day hits, and I'm going to have a big party that night for Smash Wii U's launch, and I can't find a GameCube controller adapter anywhere, obviously. So, I'm like scrambling around trying to find at least one. I go to Best Buy. because they say they have one, and it turns out I was picking up somebody else's pre-order, but like the guy didn't really know like if he should let me do it or not, and I'm like, hey, it's your choice, and he let me. So, and of course I wasn't, it was kind of a dick move. So whoever that was, whoever's night I ruined, I'm really sorry. Just so you know, I'm sorry about that.
Oh man.
I thought of another high point actually too. That I'm surprised we haven't talked about yet is Xenoblade Chronicles X. I know we had a discussion earlier during this discussion about like games running beautifully on the system and like just how breathtaking certain games look. Xenoblade was like that for me. Like jumping in a Skell and flying around the world and seeing all these creatures and having these enormous battles with these monsters, and then like just the scope of that game, the amount of ways you can customize your Skell, the story, everything about it. I think that game is a masterpiece. That's one of my top 5 favorite games on the Wii U, and I truly hope we end up getting a sequel in the future, because Xenoblade Chronicles X was just like, it exceeded my expectations in every way possible.
It seems that game seems to be very divisive. Like you either love it or you didn't really care for it at all.
Wow, really?
I see that. I kind of fall. Yeah, I was gonna say I also admit that I didn't get to play very much of it. But I really preferred the direction of the original Xenoblade Chronicles. It was more story focused. It wasn't linear, but it was not open world necessarily, and it had a much bigger focus on story and characters. And X, I felt kind of suffered from the same kind of weakness in story that all open world games suffer from. And I don't know. I hope that if they do make a third Xenoblade Chronicles game, that it's more like the original and not like X. I think I do agree with what you're saying, Roger, about how incredible it looks. The world looked amazing. It was so epic in scope and scale, but I think that came at the expense of memorable characters and a really punchy plot line. And
I could see that for sure.
Yeah, I think that was my main problem with it. But I want to say that I completely agree with you in terms of how incredible it looked.
Well, I'm going to use this opportunity, speaking of the scale of the world, to touch back on a point Roger raised earlier, which is how well, I guess it's not that weird, but it happened before, basically. But in this case, it seems especially weird that the Wii U, having a game of the scale of Breath of the Wild, this is a game we've been waiting for years. Like, this is the thing we were always looking forward to. It's like, hell, Zelda's coming. This game it's going to be something else. And then they showed it off at this year's E3, and sure enough, it looks and plays amazing. And by the way, we need to have a full discussion on that game still. We still haven't done that, so we'll have that at some point. But most people probably aren't going to be playing that game on Wii U. They're going to be playing it on the Switch. Which means, as you said earlier, Roger, the Wii U is not going to have its own unique Zelda at all. And it just seems, I don't know, it just seems like a bit of a bummer for the Wii U to end on that note. Where the game everyone's been looking forward to all this time is not even exclusive. I mean, ultimately it doesn't matter, but just for, looking back on the platform, it's just, I don't know, a little bit bittersweet almost.
Yeah, people are probably going to remember Breath of the Wild as being a Switch game and not as being a Wii U game, because more people are going to play it on there. I kind of feel like the swan song for Wii U is going to end up being Paper Mario, which I think is actually a pretty fitting swan song, because it's got some great aspects. It's really, there's the graphics in that game are fantastic, the music is great, but the gameplay is lacking and the battle system's not that great. And that's kind of how I feel about the Wii U. The Wii U was filled with amazing software, but the hardware wasn't quite there, and it took some big missteps. So overall, still enjoyable, still a great console, but there were some things wrong with it, and we can't overlook those things.
Yeah, I guess it's a good time to bring up the final question I have, at least, is what do you think the Wii U's legacy is going to be? Because I've seen a lot of people, or some people, maybe not a lot, but some people have compared it to the Dreamcast. It had some obvious similarities with it, having a short life and not being nearly as successful as a company that made it hoped it would be. And also having, some off-the-wall titles. Dreamcast is, like, I guess for the Wii U, it would be specifically Splatoon is what I'm thinking of, which reminds me of very much a Dreamcast-era game, like with Jet Set Radio.
Oh, yeah.
And, Crazy Taxi, so... Yeah, how do you think people will reflect back on the Wii U?
Well, to be fair, the Wii U isn't killing Nintendo. Dreamcast literally killed Sega.
Yeah, it did.
So, I don't think it's necessarily fair to either system to say that it's the next Dreamcast or whatever. But I think in like 10, 15 years, people are going to look back on it and be like, wow, there were some really great games on this system. But I don't know. I kind of feel like people are going to look back at it how people look back on the GameCube. I think people might look back on the GameCube a little fonder. But I still think people are going to look back and be like, wow, there were some really awesome games on this system. The only thing is, which is what sort of makes this an interesting situation for the Wii U to be in, the majority of the really good games on Wii U now are going to either be ported to the Switch or have been already ported to 3DS. So they're not even really like Wii U games, and people will have played those games. So the Wii U will sort of end up being this thing that those games debuted on, but isn't really like the main home for those games, especially if Smash Brothers and Mario Kart 8 and Splatoon all go to the Switch, and those are like the main versions, but they're pretty much the same games, but enhanced ports. It's like, it's weird.
You know, and that's also a crime where Yoshi's Woolly World is concerned, because you're absolutely right about everything you're saying, and Woolly World is going to eventually become more, associated with the 3DS, when I can already tell you, just based on what we've seen, that it is not going to come anywhere even close to capturing that kind of visual magic that the Wii U version does.
But at least we'll have Pikmin 3, right, guys?
That's true. I have heard the Dreamcast comparison as well, and I've made it myself a couple of times, although I've been thinking about that more lately, and I think a more apt comparison is actually the Sega Saturn, because, Roger, as you said, the Wii U didn't kill Nintendo like the Dreamcast killed Sega. The Saturn didn't kill Sega. It was just a very specific console that was good at very specific things and had an amazing software lineup, but the hardware was just a little half-baked. And the messaging wasn't quite there. Obviously, Sega really screwed up with that surprise launch. So I think that you can draw a lot of comparisons between the Saturn and the Wii U, more than the Dreamcast, I think.
That's a really good comparison. I like that a lot. I do kind of think like the Wii U is the Sega Saturn for Nintendo. Let's hope the Switch is not the Dreamcast.
God, right?
God, no kidding, right? That actually is a really good comparison. So just to clarify that, Steve, we're all on the same page. Do you think people look more fondly on the Dreamcast than they do the Saturn?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Then we're all on the same page. I think that's a great comparison. Yeah, I'm not sure how much of a lasting memory the Wii U is going to have relative to their other platforms.
Although, at the same time, though, people who love Saturn and who really, really are hardcore enthusiast gamers really love the Saturn. So I think it's like that kind of thing where, to a lot of people, the Wii U won't be, remembered all that fondly. But for those of us who were there throughout the whole life cycle and know just how good it could get, we're going to look back on the Wii U at least more fondly than those people and realize that it really was, in a way, a real treasure in terms of the games it gave us.
Mm-hmm. Well, so I guess for you personally then, do you think you'll look back on it as fondly as you're suggesting others might, who were really into the Saturn, for instance?
I can guarantee you I will look back on it more fondly than most people will. I have had a lot of fun with my Wii U, and obviously I am completely, cognizant of and perfectly willing to admit everything that was wrong with it, but I have to say, for the better part of this generation, probably up until this year, my Wii U was my most played current generation console. It has finally been supplanted this year, maybe late last year with the PS4. But for a long time, most of my gaming was being done on Wii U, and I had a PS4, PS3, 3DS, Vita, whatever. So I'm really gonna miss it, and I obviously took some missteps, but I'm gonna remember it pretty fondly.
Okay, now I'm curious. Let's put a number to this. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank the Wii U?
Oh boy, man. Don't do this. Come on, Andre.
I'm doing it.
Don't.
People are going to hate me.
I need to
know.
I need to know.
Do this, please.
Can we do a grading scale instead, at least?
We can't do a grading scale. We have to do numbers.
Wait, what do you mean by grading scale? Like letters?
So like A, B, C, D, F.
Okay, I guess that would be acceptable.
Okay. I'm giving the Wii U a B minus.
B minus, okay.
B minus.
Okay. I'm waffling between a B and a B plus. I will have to. Yeah, the messaging was so bad. I have to give it a B. It doesn't quite make B plus just because the marketing and the messaging was so bad.
Ignore that though. What about your personal value of?
My own personal value of the system.
Grading.
A minus A.
Wow.
I guess if we're talking all personal, then I would probably bump that up to a B from my B minus. But I still think it's like a solid B range.
Okay.
Especially compared to the other Nintendo systems. So.
I'll say if it's personal, I will say a B plus or an A minus.
Okay.
To sort of give people an idea in their heads of like where that lands, like what would you say is your favorite Nintendo system, and what would you say is like your least favorite Nintendo system? And then maybe that would also give people like a clearer idea. So
Super Nintendo is easily my favorite Nintendo console, and I would give that like an A plus 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 plus, like whatever S if I could, whatever our highest grade is, it gets that like times a million.
Yeah.
My least favorite Nintendo console is the N64. It had some great gems, I think, in its time, but I don't really think games from that early 3D generation have aged all that well. And I hate that controller still to this day. So I would give the N64 probably a C or a C+.
Okay, because I would say my favorite is also the Super Nintendo. That'd be like an A+, S tier. Love that system.
Was it the eBay rating system?
And I'd say right below that would be 3DS. I would say 3DS, even though it's not a home console, it's still a Nintendo system. I'd say like 3DS was just magnificent. But in terms of home consoles, my absolute all-time favorite is Super Nintendo. And I would actually say, and this might actually get me hate, that the Wii U is my least favorite.
Wow.
Fair enough.
And I mean, I still gave it a B, but that might go to show how much I love Nintendo. But like, I would probably say that the Wii U is my least favorite because I still go back and play my N64 to this day. I don't think I will ever go back and play my Wii U after the Switch comes out or whenever the next system's going to be. I feel like I enjoyed the time I had with it. It was awesome. It was like a good relationship, you know? You had a good couple years with it. It was awesome. You don't regret any of it. But it's time to move on.
That's a good way of putting it. I think my stance is like a perfect merger of both of yours in some way, I think. In the sense that my rating scale is completely flipped from yours, Ash, where the N64 is my personal favorite Nintendo system, with the Super Nintendo, of course, being really close. So that would be like an A+ for me. Probably A. And then the Wii U, like you, Roger, is my least favorite Nintendo platform. Yeah. So I would probably give it a C+. So which is to say, it's not bad, it's not terrible. That's still above average for me. We're all Nintendo fans here. Of course, the games are, we play it for the games, and there were a lot of good games on the Wii U. At the same time, I think they missed the mark in a lot of ways. There are some not so great games here. Like, I have this trilogy, or this trifecta of mediocre games, being Mario Party 10, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, and Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, which they just completely dropped the ball on all those.
That E3 was so painful. That was one of the most painful.
That
was Josh's first E3. I remember.
Oh my god!
He came and stayed with me, and my other friend Matt came, and they both stayed at my house. That was the first E3. It was the second E3 since moving to Los Angeles that I went to. Because the first one I literally went the day I moved, which was crazy. But it was my second E3, and I remember they announced those games, and we did live reactions before going to the event center. And oh my god, that E3 was just a nightmare.
It really was.
And then I have a vivid memory of going upstairs and playing Ultra Smash in like the media booth with Nintendo, and Reggie was over there and he's like eating cake, and he was asking us like, "Hey, what did you think of Ultra Smash?" And we were like, "Well, we really liked Federation Force."
Yeah, that was a dark E3.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think maybe that's perhaps the saddest thing about the Wii U is it's kind of sputtering to an end with those three games.
Yeah,
it hit a high note for me, although it had a very mixed reception among, or maybe not extremely mixed, but a lot of people seem down on the game, even though they haven't played it. I'm guessing with Paper Mario Color Splash. I thought it was a really good game, but I know it's not reaching I don't think it's reaching a huge audience. And then it's going to end on Breath of the Wild, which arguably is awesome. But again, I think that's going to be thought of as a Switch title. Most people will probably be playing it on the Switch. So I think that's perhaps the sad thing about the Wii U. It's not really ending on a super high note. It's just kind of sputtering to an end.
Yeah. Although that probably brings me to my last quick final point, my last high point, and this is completely personal, of course, but Paper Mario Color Splash in general was a high point for me, and I'm happy that it delivered. I'm happy that it did not end up being the dud that so many of us thought it would be, and I was guilty of that too. We both were. We both, kind of assumed it was just going to kind of suck. And like Sticker Star kind of sucked, really sucked. And it didn't, and not only did it not suck, it's actually really good in my opinion. And it's also become the new game that my wife and I are playing together. Like, I have my own file, but she's playing her own file, and I'll just kind of follow along with her and watch her, and we're having such a great time. So obviously that's completely anecdotal on my part, but that truly has been a big high point for me.
Hey, I mean, I'm gonna rip that off too. Then, like, I was thinking in a more general sense, on a personal sense. If we consider that the Wii U's last, well, it is a Wii U's last, exclusive game.
Exclusive, yeah.
I thought it wasn't a bad way to end. I really enjoyed that game, but far more than I ever expected I would. I mean, people know I hated Sticker Star, so the fact that I enjoyed this game on any level, let alone as much as I did, I think it's not a bad way for the system to go out. But in a more general sense, I think a lot of people are going to ignore that game. And we have nothing until Breath of the Wild, basically.
Oh my god, I completely forgot to mention one of my favorite Wii U games. I cannot believe Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker. How did I forgot to talk about Treasure Tracker.
Great game.
It's an amazing game. One of the best surprises. I think Paper Mario was a surprise for me too, but Treasure Tracker was so good, and I found more enjoyment in Treasure Tracker than I did out of 3D World, to be honest. I love Treasure Tracker, and I'd actually say that's probably one of my top 5. So, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I can see that. I thought Treasure Tracker was okay. I thought it was fine. Like, I enjoyed what I played of it, but it's a kind of game I feel like I enjoy a lot more for that initial burst of when I start playing it for the first, like, 5-10 minutes. Then it quickly wears out its welcome for me, and I just get tired of it, so...
I thought Treasure Tracker was a high point for me as well. I remember when I was first playing through Super Mario 3D World, and I first got to the first Captain Toad stage, my immediate thought after finishing the stage was I would play a whole game of these stages, in a second. And they delivered. Like, they released that game, and it absolutely delivered. And I had a great time. That's another game that my wife and I played together, and we loved it.
All right, guys, is that it? Do you have any other highs or lows that we missed, or are we done here?
I think that's it for me.
That covers it, yeah.
All right. Roger, where can people find you at?
They can find me Roger's Base on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Instagram. Or you can find me at my apartment playing Twilight Princess HD. So
Very nice. And of course, guys, if you like this discussion, make sure to like and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplained. This is a good way to keep updated on everything we post, and you can find links to them in the description below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplained for more on the Wii U once Breath of the Wild comes out, technically, even though we'll probably be covering the Switch one, and other things gaming as well. Catch you later. Bye.